Before everyone checks the time, one last time today, and being the last group of the undergraduate to present today, and hopefully ending the day on a good note on how deep brain stimulation can enhance the quality of life for patients with cerebral palsy. With no conflict of interest, cerebral palsy is a group of non-progressive, non-fatal, non-curable disorders that affects a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. It appears to be the most common motor disability affecting childhood, characterized by atrophic changes in the developing brain. 80% due to maternal infections or trauma, 10% due to postnatal causes, and 10% due to hypoxia. So what is CP or how does it present? It is classified into three types. Spastic being the most common, then comes the dyskinetic, and lastly the ataxic type. We're more concerned today with the dyskinetic type. Patients present with dystonia, which is characterized by abnormal postures, involuntary twisting, and repetitive movements, or chorioapitosis, which is hyperkinesia, or a combination of both, which is the most common. Both are worsened by activity, emotions, and stress, however alleviated by sleep. The areas in the brain affected that presents this clinical picture are the basal ganglia and the thalamus in 70% of cases. There are many ways to help relieve their symptoms, varying from drugs, as baclofen for spasticity, botulinum toxin, to physiotherapy, orthopedic surgeries, and lastly to the spotlight of our presentation today, which is deep brain stimulation.
Deep brain stimulation is the chronic electrical stimulation of the brain through the intracranial implanted LED electrodes. Just like how the cardiac pacemaker works, it is controlled through the subcutaneous implanted pulse generator. Now, what is the scientific idea of DBS? The scientific idea of DBS lies in the inhibitory action of two very crucial areas in the brain. Area number one being the globus pallidus internal, area number two being the subthalamic nucleus, both lying specifically inside the basal ganglia. In children with CP, these two areas are injured, thus diminishing their inhibitory function, in turn resulting in dystonia and unwanted random muscular contractions. This is exactly where DBS kicks in to re-establish their inhibitory functions through a number of unknown mechanisms, though it's suggested that it inhibits the neurons that are adjacent to the implanted LED electrodes, or by blocking out specific stimuli in the cortico-basal ganglia loop. Based on what I just said, what is our hypothesis on DBS? The hypothesis on DBS is that it's a very promising emerging treatment for children with dystonia, though it still requires a number of investigations, improvements, and researches to officially stand its ground as one of the mainline treatments in children with dystonia in the near future. The data that we have collected is based on 7 papers, some which support our hypothesis, mostly some that are also against it. The inclusion criteria for such papers are children with cerebral palsy, or those that have developed cerebral palsy since infancy, usage of DBS for treatment. The exclusion criteria for the same data we're talking about is paid access papers, papers in foreign languages, and last but not least, papers older than 20 years old.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the results now. To discuss the results, let's first discuss the Burke-Fehn-Marsden Dystonia Rating Scale, or BFMDRS, as it is the main measuring system used to qualitatively measure the degree of dystonia in both adults and children in the paper that we found. Its aim is to calculate a number based on the degree of dystonia in each affected body part, which meant that the higher the number, the worse the dystonia is. We collected 3 papers that included 45 children across them, ages 7 to 18, all of which were diagnosed with dyskinetic cerebral palsy, and they had random gender selection. The first paper was in 2014, made by Keen et al., where they collected patients who underwent deep brain stimulation at a bilateral GPI, making the results of this study showed that they had a post-operative improvement, reaching a BFMDRS score of 52.4, which is an improvement from the pre-operative score of 73.3. Even further reduction happened in the 23 months follow-up, reaching an average score of 51.1. After that, in 2020, as per this, however, these the data in the previous paper did not reach statistical significance. After that, in 2020, as per this made a paper in which they monitored patients prospectively for 10 years. The patients in this study showed statistically significant results. In the last paper in 2022, Coy et al. Monitored patients prospectively for 12 months. This time, the patients showed improvement. However, the improvement did not exceed 20%, which classified them according to this study as non-responders. So in the past 3 studies that we mentioned, only one study, which is the Esperdes et al. Study, was the only one that reached statistically significant results. However, the other 2 papers had a problem where the results were not statistically significant, meaning they had p-values of greater than 0.05 or were classified as non-responders. Considering all this, it was difficult to correlate DBS treatment as to a measured benefit for the treatment of CP patients with dyskinetic cerebral palsy. However,
as we observed the papers that we have extracted, we have noted that there is multiple problems with the BFM-DRS scoring system. To begin with, the BFM-DRS scoring system was first made for adults with primary dystonia. DCP patients typically acquire dystonia during early infancy. In addition to that, the BFM-DRS scoring system is made to measure only purposeful motor skills. However, this is not always the priority for DCP patients in order to have an improved quality of life. In fact, the WHO International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health recommends the evaluation of DCP patients beyond just the motor impairment, accounting for pain, cognition, the comfort of the patient, as well as the comfort of their caretaker. Therefore, we have a set of secondary findings in which we prove that DBS is still nonetheless applicable to DCP patients despite the statistically non-significant results that were shown by the BFM-DRS score. Going back to the paper by Asperger's in 2020, that measured it did not only stop at measuring the improvement of dystonia for DCP patients, it also measured the relief of dystomic pain. The patients were asked to rate their pain pre- and post-operatively using the numeric pain rating scale, which showed improvement on both the good days and the most troublesome pain areas post-DBS treatment. The caretakers as well took a questionnaire called the Caregiver Priorities and Child with Health Index of Life with Disability. In this questionnaire, the results have shown that their loved ones have shown more comfort post-DBS, both physically and emotionally, accounting for less need of analgesia, as well as reduction in pain severity. Another paper by Jamilo et al. In 2019 involved 5 CP patients who used the cognitive orientation to daily occupation performance approach. In this approach, the children were asked to choose from daily life tasks that mattered to them the most, some of which they were trained to do before the treatment, and some of which they were not trained to do beforehand. Post the treatment, all participants showed that DBS has made them improve in at least one of the 3 tasks. And even though that DCP patients showed a little less improvement than children with primary dystonia, they were nonetheless very satisfied with the fact that they could do tasks they were never able to do before.
Coming to the papers that support the use of DBS in adults with CP, according to Prof et al., 2 out of the 4 patients with DCP since infancy have expressed great improvement after the DBS surgery. They were able to use their dominant hand in eating and drinking, as well as in using it in computers. The BFMDR scale of these patients showed a mean improvement of 27% and 32%, as well as an 88% improvement in the Hamilton Depression Scale after the 2 years follow-up. In another study containing 13 chorioacetosis CP patients, there was a mean improvement in the BFMDR scale of about 24.4%, as well as elevation in pain, mental health, and functional disability. Coming to our last study, which is Wupin et al., he mentioned that the worse the dystonia is, the less effective the DBS treatment will be. He also stated that the earlier DBS intervention can facilitate improvement processes, as long-standing neuroplasticity can limit its effect. This gives us hope in including DBS as a treatment for children and obtaining considerable positive results. In conclusion, we can collectively say that there are limitations in the papers mentioned if they use the BFMDR scale in isolation. Not only that, but the fact that there are small sample sizes can lead to a type 2 error, which is not enough statistical power to detect its actual effect. Not to mention that the physician's goals and expectations can clash with that of the patients, which can lead to distortment of any subjective measurements taken, such as that of the CP child questionnaire. Even the short follow-up period after the DBS surgery cannot reflect the actual DBS results because they may appear years later. We advocate all those who are concerned with CP in children to implement DBS in their upcoming researches. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Dr. Antoine, for this opportunity.